Welcome back, viewers, to the latest researches and news. Today we have major breaking developments. First of all, big news. Ethiopian military soldiers have surrendered themselves directly to Fano forces. They are in Fano custody. On camera. In uniform. Video shared. Second, about Gojam update. Multi-front battles ongoing. Fano claims it has repelled a week-long Ethiopian National Defense Force offensive in Dekedomot. Chalk Mountain fighting continues. After that, about inside Tigray. Tigray People Liberation Front mobilizing every locality. Tigray Defense Force active, trained and ready. Visuals exist. Surrendered soldiers and captured soldiers footage at the very end. Do not leave. Let us start with the biggest story of the day. Amhara Fano forces have presented Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers who surrendered themselves voluntarily. These are not soldiers captured in the heat of battle. These are men who chose of their own decision to walk away from the Ethiopian military and place themselves in Fano's custody. We have received video of these surrendered soldiers. They can be seen in Fano custody wearing their Ethiopian National Defense Force uniforms. We will show you this footage at the end of today's video. But let us think about what this moment means beyond the footage itself. Soldiers surrender when they have lost faith, when they believe the war they are fighting cannot be won, when they fear their own commanders more than they fear the enemy. When they see that the other side is treating prisoners with dignity and they make a calculation that surrender is safer than continued service. This is not the first time Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers have ended up in Fano hands. But voluntary surrender is different from battlefield capture. It is a statement, a quiet but devastating statement about the morale inside the Ethiopian federal military. An army whose soldiers are choosing to surrender is not an army that is winning, no matter what its spokesmen say in Addis Ababa, no matter what banners its media channels carry. The soldiers on the ground are voting with their feet, and they are walking toward Fano. Now to the battlefield situation in Gojam, where fighting is ongoing across multiple fronts simultaneously. Fano forces linked to the Amhara Fano national movement have reported that they successfully deterred a week-long offensive by the Ethiopian National Defense Force in the Dekedomot area. Multiple fronts remain active, and battles aimed at controlling the strategic Chalk Mountain chain are still being fought as we speak. We reported in our previous video that this Ethiopian National Defense Force operation is not simply about Fano. The federal military's push into Dekedomot and toward the Chalk Mountain range is strategic preparation, an attempt to secure critical high ground and road corridors before a larger war against the Tigray People Liberation Front begins. They are trying to block the routes through Gojam that any resistance advance toward Addis Ababa would need to use. The Ethiopian National Defense Force has made territorial gains in this operation. Dekedomot town and Kwarat are under federal control. Fano has withdrawn from some positions toward Megako Oreda. But here is the reality the federal government is not broadcasting. A week-long operation with heavy weapons, air assets, and significant troop deployments, and Fano is still fighting. Multiple fronts still active. Chalk Mountain still contested. If you deploy that much force for that long, and the enemy is still fighting you, you have not won. You have entered a war of attrition in terrain that favors the defender. And the defender here is Fano, who knows every ridge, every valley, and every path in those mountains. Additionally, Fano sources have shared video of captured Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers from the Gojam battles. Soldiers in uniform, in Fano custody. This footage will also be shown at the end of this video. 2 sets of footage tonight. Surrendered soldiers, captured soldiers, both in Fano hands, both on camera. 3 Tigray. Moving to Tigray, where the picture emerging from multiple sources is one of serious accelerating preparation. Tigray People Liberation Front senior officials are conducting public meetings across multiple localities throughout Tigray. This mobilization campaign, which we have been tracking for weeks, continues to reach new communities. The message at every forum is consistent: strengthen Tigray's security, build military capacity, and unite civilians and fighters into one force. The Tigray People Liberation Front has also formally stated its position on alliances. It will support forming coalitions with all other groups that oppose Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government. The shared threat Abiy Ahmed's Prosperity Party regime is the basis for this unity. Different peoples, different histories, one common enemy. We have received visuals and updates from inside Tigray. What we have seen Tigray Defense Force fighters active, mobilized, undergoing training, and ready confirms what the Tigray People Liberation Front's public statements have been saying. But we will not be sharing these visuals with you today, not because they are unverified, not because they are unimportant, but because the security of the fighters in those visuals matters more than the views this channel would gain from sharing them. The fighters training in Tigray are preparing to defend their people. Exposing their locations, their training sites, or operational details through publicly shared footage would put them at risk of exactly the kind of drone strikes that have already killed Tigray Defense Force members near Shiraro. We have made the choice that their safety comes first. What we can tell you is this: the Tigray Defense Force is not a broken or demoralized force. What we have seen shows fighters who are prepared, disciplined, and ready for what is coming. Segment 4 now to a political development that matters for understanding the bigger picture. The Ethiopian Cooperate for Victory and Transition Coalition has issued a clear and direct statement about the national dialogue launched on July 15th by Abiy Ahmed's government. Their verdict: it is a staged process, controlled entirely by the ruling Prosperity Party, designed to exclude key political actors, lacking any genuine public legitimacy, and most critically, completely incapable of enabling a real political transition or preventing further conflict. This assessment comes not from Tigray People Liberation Front or Fano, but from a separate Ethiopian opposition coalition. It reinforces what we reported previously, that the groups actually at the heart of Ethiopia's conflicts, the Tigray People Liberation Front, Fano, Ola, are not participants in this dialogue. Mixed dedications have been formed that prevent ethnic communities from raising their own issues. Opposition voices are being suppressed. Meanwhile, Western diplomats attend the opening ceremony and call it historic. They praise its inclusiveness. But the coalition fighting to survive Abiy Ahmed's wars was not in that room. The displaced Tigrayans in camps were not in that room. The families of the 5 civilians killed by artillery in Bebun were not in that room. A dialogue that excludes the people most affected by the conflict it claims to resolve is not a dialogue. It is a performance. And the Ethiopian Cooperate for Victory and Transition Coalition has said exactly that, publicly, formally, and on the record. Finally, a brief but significant update from the Benishangul Gumuz region. New military activity has been reported at an Ethiopian National Defense Force military camp near Esosa, located close to the border with Sudan. Witnesses on the ground report military transport vehicles arriving at the camp. Machinery being moved. Signs of logistical buildup and repositioning consistent with either preparation for a new operation or urgent reinforcement ahead of an anticipated attack. This activity follows a significant development on the Sudan-Ethiopia border, the recapture of the border town of Kumuk by Sudanese armed forces earlier this month. After the Kumuk reversal, the Ethiopian military destroyed the bridge connecting Sudan with Ethiopia at the crossing point, a move that signals both the loss of offensive capability across that border and concern about what might now come in the other direction. The question being asked by analysts watching the Esosa camp is straightforward. Is this new activity preparation for another offensive push? Or is the Ethiopian National Defense Force reinforcing Esosa, defensively preparing to hold Benishangul Gumuz against a potential advance from Sudanese aligned forces and Ethiopian opposition groups? Either way, the Esosa camp is active. Something is being planned. We'll continue monitoring. 5 stories tonight. One clear picture. Ethiopian National Defense Force soldiers are surrendering to Fano voluntarily. Gojam's multi-front battles continue, with Fano repelling a week-long federal offensive and holding Chok Mountain fronts. In Tigray, the Tigray People Liberation Front is mobilizing every locality, and the Tigray Defense Force is ready even as we protect fighters' operational security by withholding visuals. Ethiopia's national dialogue has been exposed as a prosperity party political exercise with no legitimacy. And at Esosa, the Ethiopian National Defense Force is making moves that analysts are watching very closely. Abiy Ahmed's government is preparing for a major war on one front while losing soldiers to surrender on another. The resistance is preparing, the people are mobilized, and the soldiers of the Federal Army are making choices that speak louder than any press release. Now, as promised, the footage. Like, share, and subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a frontline update.